Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today we're going to talk about what happens between Star Wars Episode 8 and Episode 9. After the destruction of Osmium Prime and Starkiller Base, the First Order has more or less taken over the entire galaxy in one swift invasion. It's supposed to be impressive, but we don't get to see it in any of the movies, which honestly kind of sucks. But I get it, they didn't have enough time to fit it into the longest Star Wars movie ever made, which essentially was just Mad Max in space, one long chase. But don't worry, like a lot of you, I was very curious about what was happening in the rest of the galaxy, so I dove in headfirst to all the canon content about this time period, and now I'm here to share it with you guys. Now, at the end of The Last Jedi, Leia keeps talking about some allies in the Outer Rim that will come to their aid. But unfortunately, while their ships are getting torn apart one by one, everyone's hope in these allies begin to diminish. No one's really willing to say it to Leia's face, but she's been ghosted by her allies in the Outer Rim. Or has she? Well, during The Last Jedi, a few members of Black Squadron, including Captain Snap Wexley, and 3 other pilots are missing. That's because during the evacuation of Dakar, Leia sends them on a special important mission to contact and find those allies, which honestly might have been a better storyline than just watching the Resistance wait on a ship that slowly runs out of fuel, or Rose and Finn taking it to the big bad arms dealers on Canto Bight. Arms dealers are people too, guys. Anyway, here's what happened. The first world they end up going to is the beautiful Outer Rim planet of Pastoria, a world that lacked a strong military but had extremely rich fuel deposits, which granted the local monarch quite a lot of power. King Sirach was his name, and he was a very crafty, manipulative bastard, and he convinces the very naive Resistance fighters to help him out first in exchange for his assistance. He wants them to attack a rival leader who is currently waging a civil war against him. Black Squadron reluctantly agrees. The native starfighters were nowhere near as powerful as the ones the Resistance had, and they don't stand a chance against them. When Black Squadron gets back from their mission, the King lets the Resistance know what they just did. Not only did they kill his political rival, that rival also wanted to lead the people of Pastoria against the First Order and ally themselves with the Resistance. You see, King Sarlacc had no intention of going against the First Order. He understands just how powerful they are. The help he offers in exchange for the Resistance helping whack his political enemy was just some fuel for their starships. They completely got played. Bravo, Sarlacc. Bravo. First Order 1, Resistance 0. Black Squadron isn't done yet, though. The next planet they venture to is the mid-rim world of Ikruk. This happens around the same time that the Resistance fighters from Dakar reach Crate. Ikruk was a mountainous planet that was heavily defended by orbital and ground-based defenses along with droid fighters. Their main city of Grail was also heavily shielded. Ikruk was considered a planet that could easily hold off a small invasion fleet, but before Black Squadron can get within visual range of the planet, they hear a distress signal from the Prime Minister. Apparently, a group of local First Order sympathizers, who clearly were also racist because they were dressed like spooky ghosts, had shut down the defense grid and killed the staff who would operate said system. And now the First Order was just wailing away at their planetary shields, which were on the verge of collapsing. Despite the fact that Black Squadron had just 4 pilots, of which only 3 were human, and the First Order had an entire destroyer along with several wings of TIE fighters, the Resistance decides to save the day anyway. Black 1 and Black 2 engaged close to 100 TIE fighters, not the crappy Imperial ones, but the souped up ones from the First Order with shields. Meanwhile, Black 3 and Black 4 slip through the planetary shield. If they're going to defeat the First Order, they'll have to kill the spooky ghosts and reactivate the defensive grid. Turns out Black 4 is a terrifying acid-spitting alien, and they manage to quickly knock out the spooky ghost. Probably not wise to let her kind of be fighting alongside humanity, Black 3. Anyway, they manage to turn on the defenses and take out the First Order ship, freeing Ikruk temporarily, and more importantly, giving the Resistance a win and a new ally, Space AOC, and her very formidable defenses. So the Resistance and the First Order are tied 1-1, but the narrative pretty much remains the same across the entire galaxy. Each planet must now choose a side, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. The New Republic, for all intents and purposes, is gone. Its Navy, high command, and leadership destroyed in one fell swoop. Luckily, because of Mon Mothma's efforts to demilitarize the New Republic military, military, most of the federal funding for the military force was reallocated to planetary defense forces and local defense forces. Still, all these planets like Ikaruk and Pasana must make their own choices as the First Order's fleet bears down on them. Unfortunately for most of these worlds, they must stand on their own because while these planetary defense forces are willing to die for their own planets, they're probably not going to be willing to travel to another system and defend someone else's home. But while the First Order Navy is certainly formidable, Kylo Ren's heavy-handed approach to taking over the galaxy is going to create some big problems. He is a poor substitute for Palpatine, who is an expert statesman and master politician. Palpatine knew the importance of patience, deception, diplomacy, and was an extremely smooth operator. The guy basically took over the Republic and turned it into his empire so effortlessly that most people didn't even know what was going on. Kylo Ren, on the other hand, bashes his way through everything in an emotional fit of rage. He's more openly brutal, and that will ultimately create more enemies than the First Order might be ready to take on. Some worlds, like the peaceful ice planet of Taknuna in the Mid-Rim, felt the wrath of the First Order despite being completely neutral. Taknuna was covered in beautiful cities made out of volcanic glass. The locals were centipede-like aliens that contributed significantly to the galaxy through scientific discoveries and cultural works. The beauty of the planet and their contributions to the wider society helped them stay neutral in every war, from the Jedi Schism to the Galactic Civil War, until the First Order came and lay waste to the city with turbolaser fire. The only crimes the insects of Taknuna committed was allowing a resistance fighter to stop on their planet and send a message from its surface, which is a complete waste. Taknuna was on my bucket list for places I'd want to travel in the wider galaxy. I mean, you'd think the First Order would be able to figure out how to destroy all the bugs, but leave all their buildings and stuff intact. And that was the whole dilemma. A lot of the more peaceful worlds might not have been ideologically aligned with the First Order, but what was the point in going against them? It's not like the Resistance could do anything to prevent the destruction of their worlds. For every Ikaruk, there were 20 Taknunas. Now, one of the biggest surprises of the First Order's emergence was just how many ships their fleet had. Up until Hosnian Prime, besides Leia and a few people in the Resistance, most people didn't understand how large the First Order Navy actually was. The galaxy had been in a Cold War for several years now, but the First Order had done an excellent job in concealing their actual numbers. They had also infiltrated the New Republic's government and Senate. There are several senators who are a bit too nostalgic about the Empire's glory days, and in all fairness, the New Republic was starting to have the same bureaucratic issues that the Republic did. Anyway, when the First Order fleet appeared out of nowhere, no one in the galaxy could figure out where or how they were able to build so many Star Destroyers without control of one of the major shipyards in the galaxy. Prior to this, only a handful of planets with orbital shipyards like Fondor, Corellia, and Quat were capable of operations of this scale. It just seemed impossible for the First Order to be able to construct something as large as a Manticore Siege Dreadnought or the Supremacy in an area of the galaxy like the Unknown Region.
Capital ships, enough to reclaim control over the entire galaxy.
But they were able to do it partly because companies like Senior Fleet Systems secretly created subsidiary companies that opened up shipyards in the Unknown Region. This kind of skirted around the Galactic Concordance Treaty, which basically made it illegal for Republic businesses to sell arms or vehicles to the Imperial Remnant forces. With the New Republic fleet now destroyed and most of the galaxy under their control, the First Order made it a priority to seize shipbuilding worlds for their own uses, and more importantly, so that no one else can use them. One of the first planets they targeted was Fondor, located in the free world territory of the colony areas of the galaxy. Although Fondor's shipyards were not as large and extensive as the ones found on Corellia and Quat, they were still formidable and able to construct massive ships. For instance, Vader's Executor Star Dreadnought was built and assembled here. The Resistance had actually approached the shipbuilders of Fondor asking for assistance, but had been refused. Fondor generally stays neutral in most galactic wars. Like any good arms dealer, they know it's better to be involved with both sides of the war instead of choosing sides. More importantly, Fondor won't build ships for clients they just don't think will pay them back for their products. Given the state of the Resistance, that was probably the case in this scenario. Nonetheless, the First Order does not care. Just the thought of an independent shipyard capable of designing Star Destroyers and building them was enough for them to hostily take them over. It's not great what Kylo Ren did, but it does send a message to Quat and Corellia. Don't even think about talking to the Resistance because you might lose your head. With the destruction of basically their entire fleet, the Resistance were scrambling for ships once again. And so Princess General Leia tries to call upon an old ally of the New Republic and at one time the Rebellion, Mon Cala. Their old king Lichar had died as a martyr and inspired his people to rise up against the Empire. And the Mon Cala provided the Rebellion with the crucial ships that helped them win the war. But now Lichar's son was on the throne and he was unwell. And his closest advisor was a Corn, son of the Corn leader who tried to lead a civil war against the Mount Calamari during the Clone Wars. He whispers into the ears of the ailing king and advises him not to listen to the Resistance. He's basically worm-tongued. Leia, however, is not without allies. She meets with Admiral Akbar's son and pays her last respect to her old friend Gale. It's a trap Akbar. Something that Rian Johnson forgot to do when he unceremoniously blew him out of the bridge of the Raddus. But unfortunately, before the king is able to make a decision on whether Mon Cala will support the Resistance, the Corn leaders send a bunch of thugs to attack Leia's party. Although the Resistance are only defending themselves, they're arrested and the Corn leader is able to use this incident to further smear the Resistance. Things are not looking great, and in order to prove their innocence, Rey must now fight the Corn's champion, a giant Clone Wars era robot. Rey struggles to take down the robot, and Rose foolishly intervenes and helps kill the robot, which completely breaks the rules of this traditional trial by combat, which forces the Mon Cala to banish the Resistance from their city. Rose really screwed up and she knows it. Rey is one of the main characters of the new trilogy and clearly still alive in Rise of Skywalker. She would have been fine. The plot armor would have prevented her from dying. But on their way back to their landing pad, some Corn terrorists attempt to blow up the Resistance ship. Rose redeems herself by running over the assailant with a speeder, and now the Resistance has proof that the Corn have a hidden agenda. And that's where we're going to lead off. Hopefully the Resistance will get their ships from the Mon Cala, so they'll have some ships to fight the First Order in Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.